Have you ever had something you worked hard for ripped away, right in front of you, while no one believed you were the victim? If so, then you might understand just a fraction of what happened to me. My name is Isaac Turner. I'm just a regular guy, an engineer by trade, but at heart, just someone trying to build a better future. A future free from financial struggles, from worry, from the weight of the unknown. That's why, after years of saving, of cutting corners and skipping luxuries, I finally made a big investment: solar panels. Not just any solar panels. These were top of the line, capable of powering my entire home and significantly reducing my energy bills. It was supposed to be my moment of relief, a sign that, after years of struggling, I was finally getting ahead. I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. You see, I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Not the kind where people throw extravagant block parties or where kids ride their bikes in perfect harmony, but the kind where the HOA breathes down your neck over the color of your mailbox. Where one particular woman, someone who has made it her mission to be the self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac, treats every minor change as a personal offense. Her name? Karen. And yes, she lives up to every bit of the stereotype. At first, it was small things. A passive-aggressive note about my grass being too long when it barely brushed over the HOA's regulations. A complaint about my car ruining the aesthetic of the neighborhood. I brushed it off. After all, I was too busy working overtime and pouring my savings into making my home as self-sufficient as possible. But then, the solar panels arrived. And Karen? Oh, she lost her mind. She hated them, claimed they were an eyesore, that they ruined the neighborhood's charm. She even had the audacity to say they lowered the property value. Asterisk asterisk her asterisk asterisk property value, as if my home existed just for her convenience. I thought that was the end of it. I thought she would grumble and move on. I was wrong, because one day, I woke up to the sound of smashing glass. At first, I thought I was dreaming. But then, another crash. I bolted up, heart pounding, rushing to the window. And that's when I saw her, a sledgehammer in her manicured hands, swinging, shattering, destroying my solar panels, one by one. And when I ran outside, yelling, demanding to know what the hell she was doing, she dropped the hammer, pulled out her phone, and called 911. She was calling the cops on me. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about solar panels. This was war. My breath was coming fast, my pulse thundering in my ears as I rushed toward Karen. She stood in my driveway, her perfectly styled hair barely shifting in the morning breeze, gripping her phone with one hand while the other hovered over the sledgehammer. My sledgehammer. The woman had gone into my garage. She had taken my tools. And now, she was destroying the very thing I'd spent years working for. Karen, what the hell are you doing? I shouted, the words raw in my throat. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she turned slightly, her nose wrinkling, as if I were some kind of pest. And then, with a voice so perfectly calm it sent chills down my spine, she spoke into the phone. Yes, hello. I need the police right away. There's a dangerous man on my property. I blinked, my fist clenched. Her property. Karen, are you out of your mind? You're the one trespassing. You broke my. She turned away from me, raising her voice just enough to cut me off. Yes, he's threatening me. He looks aggressive. A pause. Then, she gasped. Oh my God. I think he has a weapon. The world around me seemed to tilt for a second. My mind raced. This had to be some kind of joke. There was no way. But then I caught sight of my neighbor, old Mr. Dawson, stepping onto his porch. His eyes flicked between me and Karen, his face scrunching in confusion. Another door creaked open down the street. People were watching. Karen knew exactly what she was doing. I forced myself to take a deep breath, to keep my hands where everyone could see them. Are you serious right now? I demanded, my voice lower, controlled. You're the one who broke onto my property. You stole my tools. You destroyed my solar panels. Karen let out a dramatic sigh. Officer, he's getting closer. I don't feel safe. My stomach twisted. This was bad, because I knew exactly how this was going to look. A middle-aged white woman, standing on the street, calling for help. And me, A furious, 6-foot-tall man of color, standing beside a sledgehammer, my destroyed property at my feet. It didn't matter that I was the victim. A familiar, sinking feeling settled deep in my gut. The kind of feeling you get when you realize you've already lost before the fight has even begun. I looked at Karen, really looked at her. She wasn't afraid. Not even a little. There was no fear in her eyes, no hesitation in her voice. Just the cold, calculating smirk of someone who knew she held all the power. And then, sirens. The sharp wail of approaching police cars shattered the early morning stillness. My neighbors whispered amongst themselves, their eyes bouncing between Karen and me like they were watching some kind of twisted reality show. I swallowed hard, stepping back, lifting my hands slightly to show I had nothing on me. Stay calm. Don't give them a reason. The first officer pulled up, stepping out of his squad car with one hand already resting on his holster. Another officer followed, their eyes locking onto me as they approached. Karen immediately ran toward them, her face twisting into a mask of pure distress. Thank God you're here. He was threatening me. I was just walking by when he started screaming. And then he grabbed that thing. She gestured wildly at the sledgehammer, her voice breaking just enough to sell the performance. The officers turned to me. Sir, one of them said, stepping closer. Put your hands where I can see them. I exhaled slowly. They already are. The officer didn't respond. Instead, he looked past me to the shattered glass, the broken panels, the sledgehammer on the ground. Did you cause this damage? I let out a bitter laugh. Are you serious? No. I woke up to find her smashing my solar panels. She's the one trespassing. Karen let out a scoff. Oh, please. That's ridiculous. She turned to the officers, shaking her head. He's been trying to install these hideous things for weeks. It's against the HOA guidelines. When I tried to explain that to him, he got aggressive. I clenched my jaw. Lie after lie after lie. One of the officers frowned. Sir, do you have any proof that this is your property? My eye twitched. Are you kidding? Yes. I have all the paperwork inside. I have video footage from my security cameras. Karen's face paled for just a fraction of a second. A tiny crack in the performance. But then she recovered. Oh, please. He's probably got some grainy footage from weeks ago. How do we even know this is his house? That was it. That was the moment the officer hesitated. The moment doubt settled in. I wanted to scream, to point out how insane this was. How Karen had literally walked onto my driveway, taken my sledgehammer, and destroyed my property, and yet, somehow, I was the one being questioned. But I knew better. I took another slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Like I said, I have proof. If you let me go inside, I can pull it up right now. The two officers exchanged a glance. One of them nodded. All right, but we'll be watching. I turned, walking toward my house, my shoulders stiff with frustration. I knew exactly what Karen was trying to do. She wanted me to snap, to make a scene, to give her one single excuse to twist the situation in her favor. Not today. I stepped inside, my hands trembling as I opened my laptop, navigating straight to my security feed. And there it was. Crystal clear footage. Karen, trespassing, taking my sledgehammer, destroying everything. With shaking hands, I carry my laptop back outside, setting it down on the hood of the police car. Here, I said, my voice tight. Watch. The officers leaned in, and for the first time that morning, Karen went silent. The officers leaned in, their eyes fixed on the laptop screen as the security footage played. The morning light glinted off the police car's hood, casting shifting reflections on their uniforms. My breath felt shallow, my pulse hammering against my ribs. This was it, the undeniable proof. The moment everything would turn in my favor. Karen stood stiff beside me, arms crossed. I could see the tension in her jaw, the way her fingers twitched against her sleeves. She knew what was coming. And yet, as the video played, something inside me twisted, because even with cold, hard proof, I wasn't sure it would be enough. The footage showed everything. Karen marching onto my property, stealing my sledgehammer, swinging with all the force of her pent-up rage. The glass from my solar panels shattered like ice beneath her blows, glittering under the sun. She didn't look afraid. She didn't look like a concerned neighbor trying to protect the HOA's integrity. She looked like exactly what she was, a vindictive, entitled woman who thought she could do whatever she wanted. The first officer, the one who had been so quick to question me, furrowed his brows. The second one exhaled sharply. Well, he muttered under his breath. I swallowed. So, silence. A long, unbearable pause. Then, Karen laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not an embarrassed chuckle. A full, arrogant, haughty laugh. Oh, please, she scoffed, flipping her blonde hair over her shoulder like we were standing in the middle of a bad soap opera. This doesn't prove anything. Who's to say this footage wasn't edited? My stomach dropped. What? She shrugged. I mean, with all this fancy technology these days, people can doctor videos to make it look like anything happened. I'm sure he has some, what do you call it? AI. Deepfake nonsense. She turned to the officers, batting her lashes. Come on, you can't honestly believe this proves his story. My hands curled into fists. Are you serious right now? Are you actually serious? Karen's smirk widened. You're awfully aggressive, Isaac. Maybe that's why I felt threatened in the first place. A sharp, cold rage burned through me. This was beyond gaslighting. This was manipulation on a whole other level. The first officer hesitated. It is possible to alter footage. I felt like the ground beneath me was slipping away. No, they couldn't actually be buying this. I turned to the second officer, the one who had reacted more visibly to the footage. You can't be serious. You saw what I saw. That's real footage. You can literally check the timestamps. I have all my receipts for the panels. I have the security logs. I even have footage from yesterday showing the panels intact. The first officer still looked skeptical, but the second one seemed more convinced. His lips pressed into a thin line. He looked at Karen. Ma'am, do you have any proof that this man threatened you? Karen's face darkened for a split second, but then she let out an exaggerated sigh. Oh, officer, she said dramatically, placing a hand on her chest. I was too busy fearing for my life to start recording. But I have a right to feel safe in my own neighborhood, don't I? I let out a bitter laugh. Safe? Safe from what? The clean energy revolution. Karen shot me a glare. From aggressive, disrespectful people like you. Something inside me snapped. You mean people you can't control? I set my voice sharp as steel. Because that's what this is, isn't it? You didn't want these solar panels because they ruined the neighborhood. You hated them because they reminded you that you don't run things here. Karen's nostrils flared, but before she could respond, a new voice rang out. Excuse me, officers. We all turned. It was Mr. Dawson. The old man had shuffled closer from his porch, his cane tapping against the pavement. His wrinkled face was unreadable, but his eyes, they burned with something fierce. I saw the whole thing, he said simply. Karen stiffened. The officers turned fully toward him. Sir, Mr. Dawson gestured toward Karen with his cane. This woman, she's lying. My breath hitched. Karen let out a nervous chuckle. Oh, Mr. Dawson, don't be ridiculous. You must have been confused. But the old man didn't so much as blink. I've lived in this neighborhood for 35 years, he said, his voice even, steady. I've seen a lot of things, but I have never seen someone so blatantly destroy someone else's property and then try to play the victim. He turned to the officers. I was sitting on my porch, drinking my morning coffee, when I saw her march on Isaac's driveway and start swinging like a damn lumberjack. Karen's face paled. I saw him come outside, looking confused as hell. Mr. Dawson continued. Saw her turn on the dramatics and call you lot before he could even process what was happening. And now she's trying to weasel her way out of it. He exhaled sharply. Absolutely shameful. The officers exchanged glances. Karen was losing ground. Fast. But she wasn't done yet. Well, that's just one person's account, she stammered, voice pitching up. How do we even know? Another voice cut in. I saw it too. A woman this time. Mrs. Patel, 3 houses down. Then another. And another. The neighbors who had been watching from their porches. From their windows. One by one, They stepped forward. I saw her swinging the hammer like a crazy person. She walked right onto his driveway like she owned the place. She didn't look scared to me. Karen looked around, her eyes darting wildly. The confidence was gone. This is ridiculous, she shrieked. You're all against me. This is harassment. The first officer, the one who had been hesitant, exhaled sharply and turned back to me. Sir, would you like to press charges? A deep silence fell. Karen's head snapped toward me, her expression twisted with panic. Isaac, I met her gaze, feeling the weight of everything she had done. The humiliation, the stress, the damage. And then I turned back to the officer. Yes, I said, my voice unwavering. I would. Karen screamed. Karen's scream pierced the quiet suburban air, a mix of rage and desperation. Her carefully curated mask of self-righteousness had crumbled, leaving behind something raw, something exposed. She wasn't in control anymore. The first officer, now thoroughly convinced, pulled out his notepad. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down. Calm down, Karen shrieked, her eyes wild as she turned on him. You're taking a side? After everything I've done for this neighborhood. The neighbors stood firm, their eyes locked onto her like a jury ready to deliver a verdict. Mr. Dawson leaned on his cane, his wrinkled face unreadable, but his eyes burned with quiet satisfaction. Ma'am, the second officer said, more firmly this time, you are under arrest for destruction of property and filing a false police report. Karen paled. For a moment, it seemed like she was struggling to process the words. Then, like a cornered animal, she spun toward me. You can't do this to me, she spat. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. You don't belong here. Your kind of people don't fit in. The slap of handcuffs locking around her wrists cut her off. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Even I was stunned by how quickly it happened. 1 second, she was ranting. The next, click. The officer gave her a cold stare. I'd suggest you stop talking now. Karen's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The weight of reality had finally hit her. I watched as she was led toward the squad car, her expensive heels clicking against the pavement. Then, the cherry on top. As she was being placed in the back seat, her phone, still gripped tightly in her manicured hands, suddenly rang. A name flashed across the screen. HOA President, Martin. I didn't have to hear the conversation to know exactly how that call was going to go. HOAs love their rules, and something told me they wouldn't be too thrilled about one of their own being arrested on camera, in broad daylight, with half the neighborhood watching. As if reading my mind, Mrs. Patel let out a small, amused hum. You know, she said, folding her arms, the HOA is pretty strict about bad press. This might actually be enough to get her removed from the board. Karen's head snapped up from the back seat, her face contorted in horror. No, you can't. The officer shut the car door. Her muffled protests faded as the squad car pulled away, disappearing down the street. It was over. A deep breath shuddered from my lungs. The weight, the stress, the humiliation, the anger, all of it lifted. I turned to Mr. Dawson, who was watching me with a knowing smile. You really had my back, I said, still slightly in awe. The old man chuckled. Son, I've seen that woman pull her tricks for years. You just finally gave her enough rope to hang herself. A few of the neighbors laughed, nodding in agreement. Mrs. Patel nudged me. We'll all pitch in to help fix your solar panels. I blinked. Really? Of course. She smiled. This neighborhood could use a little change, and a little more sunlight. The small joke sent a ripple of warmth through my chest. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like the outsider. I didn't feel alone. Karen had tried to turn everyone against me, to paint me as the problem. Instead, she'd exposed herself. And now, I looked around at the faces of my neighbors, people who had once been distant, indifferent. Now they stood beside me. Now, we weren't just neighbors. We were a community. As I stood there, watching the last of the police cars disappear down the street, a strange feeling settled over me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. For weeks, I had felt like I was fighting a battle I couldn't win. No matter how right I was, No matter how logical my arguments, Karen had twisted reality around me, making me doubt myself, making me feel like the outsider in my own home. But in the end, truth had won. Not because I fought harder, not because I shouted louder, but because people saw. I had been so convinced that I was alone, that the whole neighborhood was against me. But all it had taken was one voice, Mr. Dawson's, to tip the scales. One person willing to stand up and say, no, this isn't right. And once that first voice spoke, others followed. That's the thing about people. They're not always blind. Sometimes, they're just waiting for permission to see. I looked at my shattered solar panels, the broken glass catching the sunlight. They were ruined, sure, but they could be replaced. And me? I wasn't broken at all. Karen had tried to paint me as an invader, an outsider who didn't belong. But now, I had neighbors offering to help. I had people who had seen me, really seen me, and chosen to stand with me. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. As I turned toward my house, a thought struck me. This wasn't the last challenge I'd face here. People like Karen, they didn't just disappear. She'd be back, maybe not here, maybe not now, but somewhere in someone else's life, twisting the truth again. And when she did, I just hoped someone else, someone like me, would have a Mr. Dawson. Or maybe they'd be their own Mr. Dawson. Because sometimes, all it takes to change everything is one person willing to speak up,